What's up, everybody? It's Kami, and welcome to, I guess, a little JoJolion discussion video. I'm here with PsychicExtremist. You can say hi, dude, I guess.
Yo, 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 it's me, ya boy, best YouTuber on the scene.
There you go. Best YouTuber. He said it himself. Can't argue.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. There you go. But, yeah, I just thought we'd sit down and talk about Jobin, because I've been kind of wanting to talk about his character for a while now. And I was thinking of doing, like, a character explain video, but then I thought about it, and I'm like, there's still so much to be explained about him. If I were to do a character explain video on Jobin, it would pretty much just be his stand, Speed King. And I was just like, instead of just doing that, because I won't be able to do that video until we get more closure on his character and we find out what his exact, clear motives are, then we wouldn't, I want to be able to sit down and do this. So instead, we're just going to talk about it, I guess, kind of quote-unquote podcast style.
Yeah.
So if you're into that, then yeah. But first off, just getting this out of the way, a lot of people, when they talk about Jobin, they see him as, an antagonist, right? And
he's basically the main villain.
As of right now, he's like our main antagonist and our main villain character. But a lot of people think that he's not going to be the main antagonist. But I've seen some people say that they don't think he's going to be the main antagonist because of his stand ability. And I can agree and disagree, because we know that he's trying, as of right now, he's trying to stop Josuke from getting to the fruit to get to the Rokakaka. That's his current goal right now. He doesn't want him to get the fruit. He doesn't want him to use it because he knows he's looking for it. That's why he has Dolomite go and attack Josuke, and he's sending out other people probably, and he's contacting a bunch of other stand users that he knows, and maybe rock people, because Jobin's got a lot of connections to a lot of people, and that's been pretty clear with JoJolion from the start. When they introduced him, they're like, yeah, he's the eldest son, he's this big boss guy, he has contact with Norisuke, he knows about the fruit, which, all of the other people, they don't have access to the fruit. Like Joshu doesn't have access to the fruit, Kato doesn't have access, they don't pay attention to these things, they don't deal with these things. But Jobin's the oldest, so he's at the top of the family, and he's with Norisuke and his mother in these situations. And that's another thing, he's also connected to his mother, who is this mysterious woman that's kind of just introduced out of nowhere. They randomly just threw her in there, and she was super shady and shit.
Yeah. Well, if we take a step back to think about what we know about him, he's got very clear ties, or he had ties with Demo.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe equals. So there was definitely something there that was of a higher ranking in the fruit smuggling than compared to the other rock humans.
Yeah, because even with his Demo's attack, not you mentioned that actually, when he attacks the Higashikata household, Jobin isn't there, and I'm pretty sure if Jobin would have been there, he wouldn't have attacked Jobin, and Jobin would have probably assisted him in some situation. But then that would have made him a big traitor to the family, and they would have had another big fight with Jobin right there, and it would have been a bunch of crazy shit. But that is actually a good point. Of him having this connection to Demo, because he does have connections to rock people. He has a connection to Dolomite, which is the biggest, connection that we've seen him have, aside from being connected to the fruit. We see him actually interacting with a rock human. He goes and he feeds Dolomite. He talks to Dolomite about the stand ability, and he's like, hey, we'll make a bargain. I'll give you this, and you do this for me in return.
Yeah, he really is a very interesting character, because no one is really sure about what his deal is, because there was a long time, as you said, where no one really could tell if he was a main villain or not.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty certain he is, because I remember a couple of chapters back, you probably remember this, Josuke was showing Norisuke the image of Jobin in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was basically Araki screaming, here he is, this is the main villain. Because to me, that couldn't have been more clear that this, he is, if not the antagonist, he's one of the major ones.
Yeah.
But in the context of where JoJolion's at, even if he isn't the villain, well, you got to wonder who else can be the villain. Because if Araki brought in a brand new character into JoJolion this late, because we've got to assume it'd be a Diavolo situation where we've got a character who's came in, there's no development from him, and we're just not going to care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Jobin works.
That's a good point. Yeah, Jobin does work. Because the only other person that we could suspect to be a main villain would be the mother, Kato, or Hato, whichever one of the two, because their names are literally one letter off. But she's probably the only other person that I could sit down and consider to be main villain or be related to main villain. But regardless of what you think about Jobin, because I know, again, people think he's not going to be the main villain because of his stand ability, and we'll get into that after this, but I just think the way his character has been set up for, since his introduction, and the way his character has acted around Josuke, he's always known there's something wrong with this Josuke kid. He knows, probably since the beginning, he's known that he's two people, because he knows that he's going after the fruit, and he knows that he can't let him get the fruit. in the most recent chapter on like the 4th page. I'm looking at it right now. He says, whoever that is, we cannot let Josuke reach them. Not only that, but it's vital that we find that person that can find the branch before he does. So Jobin knows there's somebody else that Josuke is going to go meet up with so he can go find the fruit. Because Norisuke, you know, in like the chapter before this was like, all right, you've got to go to this garden place or whatever, and you've got to talk to this person, and they'll help you from there. And Jobin in this chapter is like, hey, we can't let him reach that person. Whatever it is that he's trying to do, I can't let him do that. Because even Jobin's unaware of what exactly Josuke is doing, but it's also a situation where that goes vice versa. And again, with the whole thing at the beginning of the chapter of it saying that they all walk the same path, they walk it differently. They're all going to, they're trying to, I guess, find this common goal of the fruit. Now, the thing with this thing of the chapter cover that kind of throws me off about that, though, is that they also include Joshu, so it makes me think that Joshu is going to have a more prominent role from this point on, because they have Josuke, Jobin, Norisuke, and Joshu all there, and it says they all walk the same path, but they walk it differently. So there's probably going to be some big encounter with a person that they're going to meet, and it's going to bring everybody together into some big fight. And whether or not these characters are all going to work together, or they're going to fight against Jobin and whoever else the main villain is, I think it's kind of interesting that he keeps bringing up the Rokakaka and not letting Josuke get to it, because again, we still don't know what Jobin's main goal is. Like, why does he not want him to get the fruit? Why is he so, concerned about what Josuke is doing when everybody else wants to help him? Because we know Joshu didn't like Josuke at first, but he's like, whatever about it now. Norisuke's always loved Josuke. He wants to help him. Everybody else in the family wants to help Josuke. Yasuho's trying to help Josuke, but Jobin is like, no, I can't let this guy get what he wants. I can't let him get to the fruit. I can't let him do this no matter what. And it's just like, why? Because even with the mother, she's introduced and she just got out of prison and they don't like her because she killed somebody, right? She killed like a kid or something. And that's kind of, shady and suspicious. And even she's not concerned with Josuke, at least as of right now, because we never know if, hey, boom, next chapter drops, and then for whatever reason, they throw her in there and she's all talking to Jobin and she's like, yeah, kill that kid. You can't let him do anything. We don't know if that's going to happen. And if that does happen, I called it right here. So, boom, I'm a genius. I'm a guru. I can see into the future. You're the psychic extremist, but I'm the psychic.
Yeah, you're one step ahead of me, apparently.
But yeah, so even if they do this, it's still really weird to me that Jobin has been so enthusiastic about stopping Josuke. And going into the next topic on this, I guess, is people don't think he's going to be the main villain because of his stand ability, and they think, oh, his stand is too weak to, be a main villain because he can heat things up. People don't realize the fact that he can just, heat things up in, like, a room and stuff is actually a big deal. Because if you were to raise the room temperature, that can affect people's bodies differently. You start to sweat a lot. You go into heat exhaustion. And we don't know if he could start cooling things down and then completely freeze you and freeze your body from moving, kind of Dio style, I guess. That would be really cool. But we don't know if he can do these things or not. And there's another thing of not knowing if he was holding back in the beetle fight or not with his stand abilities.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the beetle fight, I don't think he intentionally went in there thinking, I've got to bring out my stand and, just fucking destroy Josuke. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that fight is really representative of what his stand can do. And I think the ability has a lot of potential. It could work in a similar way to, say, Killer Queen. Killer Queen isn't, say, Killer Queen versus Star Platinum, as we saw, Killer Queen got pretty wrecked, but it's still a powerful stand, and they seem to work in a kind of similar way of Jobin being able to interact with objects to heat them up
and change it up. Yeah, he's like changing the property of it and affecting it.
Yeah, so it's got potential, and there's also the big theory that I've seen at the moment of possible fusion happening between him and Kato, or maybe Dolomite. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So that could definitely, make his stand a lot more potent, similarly to how Josuke and Kira fused to get the best of both worlds for their stand.
Wet with the kind of Killer Queen effect to it. Because I know a lot of people were like, oh, he doesn't have Killer Queen properties. He has that one fight against the two Rockmen, against the two Rock Twins that have the ball or whatever, and he pops a bubble into the guy's face and it blows up, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, maybe that's just because, he's taking something out of their body and he's expanding it or whatever. He's pushing the skin out. No, that was an explosion. And also when he kills Damo, and a lot of people were just like, oh, nah, that's not anything. He just punched him really hard. Even if you punch the Rockmen really hard, because they're still rock people, and you punch them, they'll probably just crumble. But the way he does it, and he does
that dude blew up.
Keep in mind, no, he punches Damo's head with the stand, and his whole head like blows up, and like his blood like splatters onto the side of like the like wall or whatever outside, and like Jobin sees it and he freaks out. He's like, oh shit, what the hell happened here? And he's like, yo, like this is crazy. The guy's head blew up. So, you know, because I was talking about like before that chapter, I was like, hey, I'm kind of wondering if they're gonna start showing more Killer Queen elements, and it looks like we're starting to see more Killer Queen elements with Soft and Wet, and that's dope to me because he is a fusion after all, so he should have a little bit of, you know, some of the both stand abilities involved with his stand. So talking about Jobin, if he were to fuse with Dolomite through Rokakaka fusion or whatever, you know, through equivalent exchange, then he would have this ability of, you know, being able to zombify people while having this heat ability, or maybe he'll gain like a completely new ability and it'll be like a, you know, Bice of Dust type of thing, or like a quote-unquote Requiem, whatever the hell, and he just gets the new stand ability, because we never know if he's going to get something new or not. We never know if any of the main characters are ever going to get a new ability or not, because that's the thing with stands. They have potential to grow, and it depends on the character and the way Araki writes things. They could always get a new power-up out of nowhere, and you guys might think, hey, that's bullshit. Well, you can call it bullshit, but that's just the way it's written in the story.
Yeah, I think with the alt universe, there's always going to be that parallel between the original parts and these new parts, and I think Part 8 is very, very similar to Part 4. So I think that should be something that we bear in mind as we think of like what could happen. So a Bitely Dust Cell situation, it could happen, because there have been quite a lot of parallels between JoJolion and Diamond is Unbreakable. Like in the Blue Hawaii fight, and I found that one to be very similar to Highway Star.
Highway Star, yep.
So it's really similar. We've got Yasuo, who is basically Koichi. We've got Josuke running away from a stand attack. He's trying to find the user. It's got a lot of similarities, and I think it's so awesome that happens. So we could easily see another throwback in the final fight to what was I saying? Yeah, we could find a throwback similar to the Kira fight. I don't know, maybe Joshua gets blown up or something. Josuke to try and save him. You never know.
Yeah, and again, talking about how you brought up earlier, with the way JoJolion is going in the writing, we're about 61 chapters in. We're about like at the halfway point of JoJolion. Just regarding his story, the first half was Josuke figuring out who he was. Now he knows he is Josefumi with Kira fused inside of him, right? He knows he has like, you know, like what, 25% of Kira inside of his body, for whatever percentage they gave in like the chapter. He gave like an estimate or something, because he doesn't have like all his memories from Kira, and he doesn't have like all these other things. But when he goes to the hospital and he sees Holly, you know, he has feelings for her as the woman that saved his life when he was a little kid, and his mother, because he still has some type of, you know, feeling from Kira left inside him, because Kira's body was still found and stuff, and it wasn't like a complete 100% fusion. And that's another thing we don't know how that's gonna work out, is if there is another fusion with like Jobin or somebody. We don't know if Jobin's body is going to get left behind, or Dolomite's body, or his mother's body, or whoever it is that shows up is going to have an effect where it's going to be like some Dragon Ball shit, and it's going to be like a complete body fusion where they become one person, or if it's just going to be remnants of the other person with their stand ability in the other person. And that's just one of the things that I really like about JoJolion, is it's so unpredictable, and there's so many things that can just happen. But it's cool when you look at just, you know, Jobin and all these other characters, like I mentioned earlier, Joshu, how they're starting to bring him out more, and they're making him seem more relevant, because it would be really cool if there's like some random ass like betrayal or something, and then Joshu joins Jobin, and we see him fight Josuke, because he's got a really strong stand ability too with Nut King Call, or if we see them go through some equivalent exchange, or Joshu even gets a power up. There's so many crazy things, but at this point, I think it's pretty safe to assume that Jobin is definitely going to be involved with the main villain, at least, if not the main villain, because at this point, again, it would be really weird if they just introduced somebody else and it's like, yeah, this is the guy behind everything. He's just going to show up for like the last like 20 chapters and not do anything except for that, and that would just be really weird.
I think the fusion point about Jobin is pretty likely, because when you think about it, every antagonist has gone through some kind of change. Because, you know, part 1, Dio, Vampire, we've got part 2, Cars, Ultimate Being.
Ultimate Cars.
You know, every single one of them has had some kind of transformation. We had Pucci, New Moon, Valentine, I guess. He just turned into a buff as fuck dude. Like,
I mean, Valentine got,
for no reason.
Valentine
and
got
Love Train.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well. So it's pretty likely. I never actually thought about that until now. But
the
whole went through
only
a
one that doesn't
transformation.
go under any change really is Diablo.
Yeah,
Aside from having like the Doppio effect, where he just has.
Well, yeah, there's that one. That one's a bit of a stretch, but it still kind of ties in there. But I can definitely see at the end, like, things really ramping up where we get this kind of transformation from Jobin, because I can't see Kato being a main villain, because as important as she is, we don't know anything about her.
Yeah.
But to be honest, that point kind of stands for Jobin as well, because if we assume we're at like the 70% point,
Mhm.
we know very little about him, but I think that's getting rectified, because I believe in the latest chapter, he was mentioning something about going from 0 to 1, or something about progressing.
Yeah, he says that he needs to keep climbing higher or he'll never be happy. Because he says, you know, even though I'm such a fortunate person to be the oldest son of a wealthy family, I still have to get somewhere. Because he says the point we're at is 0 for us and people have to go upwards. And he says the same thing about Josuke. He says, I cannot let Josuke rise. I know for a fact he's heading for the Rokakaka with my father's direction, so we have to stop him. So he has that point being made that he himself is also growing as a person, and he wants to continue to grow because he, like I said, he's like, yeah, I know I belong to a rich, you know, wealthy family, and I'm the oldest son, and I have a lot of money myself, and I'm very successful in life, but I have to keep succeeding.
Yeah, that's something good we get from his character, because we really needed some motivation for him to do the things that he does. And I think the fact we've got a clear idea of like what his mentality is makes it pretty likely that he's a villain. So all we can really hope for is it to be expanded upon, get some good dialogue between him and Josuke, possibly get some flashbacks or something.
Yeah,
But
I
for
think
the
we
most part, I
might
think this is
end up
working out.
getting-
It looks like he is the villain.
Yeah, I think we might end up getting Jobin flashbacks sometime soon. I definitely know if they do start giving us flashbacks, then he's for sure going to be like involved, because just the way that JoJo writes itself, when they start giving characters flashbacks out of nowhere, the character's probably about to die, or they're going to explain some important shit, and then that person is going to be relevant for a couple of chapters, and then they'll die. Because, like, we look at Foo Fighters. Before Foo Fighters dies, what happens? They give us flashbacks of Foo Fighters' life as just a stand, just sitting there for, you know, like, what, 20 years or however long, inside of the swamp, just sitting there guarding the standus for Poochie. Didn't do anything before that. But we get this little bit of information right before they die, right before they're relevant, because before that point, we just knew that Foo Fighters was like the stand, and then they took over Eto's body, and she just became that person. But then, right before she dies, we get this history of her, and we understand that she has feelings now, she understands what it's like to be a person, quote unquote, and she wants to keep that. And what happens? She fights Poochie, plot happens, they move on to stuff, and then she dies. So if they were to randomly, like next chapter, right, like chapter, 62, because it'll be Blue Hawaii Part 2, because this one was Blue Hawaii Part 1. If they randomly just give us a Jobin flashback from his childhood, or we figure something out, we definitely know Jobin is going to get, like, super important right after that point. Because Rocky's not going to give us a flashback on somebody out of nowhere without doing anything like he started doing with Josuke before he got his memories back. When he was finding more context clues, and he met up with Carrera, and he talked to Kyo, and all of these things started happening, and he started getting all these little context clues to who he was, and he was figuring things out with Damo's introduction and fighting the Rock Twins and stuff with Joshu. All of these things happen, and he starts getting flashbacks, and that's, again, the big thing, the flashbacks. When they start giving us a back history, we know there's going to be some big exposition, because what happens right before, or right after these flashbacks, Josuke has the fight with Damo. He understands, I am a fusion between Josefumi and Kira. So if we get a flashback for Jobin, or even Kato or Hato, I always get their names mixed up, but even if we get any like bit of backstory on either of these two characters, and then like the next couple of chapters, they're definitely going to be important. But at this point, it's become so clear that Jobin is such a main antagonistic role, because he's so against Josuke, and even though he's friendly towards the guy, and he even bet a Lamborghini in a beetle fight with him, and he got his car, you know, taken from him and stuff, he's very clear about making sure that Josuke cannot succeed, and he doesn't want him to reach his point. Why is that? I don't know. That's probably something we're going to find out in the next couple of chapters, but that's just the exciting thing about this, is that we don't know, and it's really adding up to be something really big and really good for JoJo. And I've said this before, but JoJolion is my favorite part, and lately, with these new chapters that have been coming out, it's, you know, really living up to that, and keeping me interested, keeping me thinking about what's going to happen next, and it's just overall really interesting. And at this point, if you still don't think that Jobin is going to be the main role, well, I don't know what to tell you, because all of the context clues just point to him. I mean, who else are they going to throw in? You know, like
there's no, they can't throw anyone
can't throw in anybody
else like this late on. And I think you were saying this earlier, Blue Hawaii could potentially be a pivotal moment for everything to come together, similarly to how, say, in Part 4, everything hit the fan when Koichi and Jotaro went to inquire about Kira's jacket. Yeah, this could be a moment like that, where everyone meets together, and then, you know, shit kicks off. Somebody could die, potentially.
And again, talking about that, literally the cover of the chapter, right before, like, that's a good point that you brought that up, because the chapter says, even on the same road, they walk differently. And who do we have on this cover? We have Norisuke, we have Joshu, we have Jobin, and Josuke. There's nobody else. It's just the four of them standing there. Jobin is looking away from the family. Joshu and Jobin are looking at Josuke, and Josuke is looking back at Jobin. So, and they're talking, and again, that little bit of text, even on the same road, they walk differently. They're all, it seems like they're all on this one path, and they're all connected to each other. Obviously, everybody's connected to Josuke because he's the main character, but everybody else has their own goals to achieve. What the hell does Joshu want? Why is he here? You know, and again, pointing out they're on the same road, they walk differently. Being on the same road means they're all achieving something, and they're all looking for something. They're all just walking down the same path, so we might eventually, or like, you know, even next chapter, they just randomly all meet up, or Joshu meets up with Josuke and Norisuke at the site where he's supposed to get the fruit to meet up with the person, and then they have an encounter with Jobin there. So that's a good point that you brought that up, because I kind of just, I didn't think about that. It could be like this big halfway point fight, and somebody could potentially die. Maybe it's Joshu, maybe it's Norisuke, which if Norisuke dies, he's pretty much been the most important character to Josuke outside of everybody else, because he knows the most. He's the one that took him inside of the house. He's been friendly to him. He's explained all of the different stuff with the rock people, the fruit. He's been giving Josuke all this information, and the entire time since Norisuke's introduction, he has said, I will help you, you know, regardless, you're a good guy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and, you know, sugarcoat anything. Whatever happens, happens. And he's very clear about this. So if he dies, that's a really big thing in the story, just regarding everything. Because one, they just lost the dad to the family, but the mother's there. And then that means that the mother can take over, but nobody likes the mother. Nobody trusts her except for Jobin. And who is Jobin? This guy that's against our main character. So if he eliminates his father, that makes him one step closer to eliminating Josuke. So that's a good point that you brought that up, because now I'm starting to think about a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. I don't think Joshu's going to die, because I find that to kind of be wasted potential.
Yeah.
Because I think he's going to join Josuke eventually. But Norisuke, I think Norisuke's role is kind of like done. There's not anything major that I think we can really expect to see from him. A good turning point for him would be to see him completely defy Jobin.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he really loves his family, and we've seen throughout, you know, like how he entrusted Daya to Josuke or something. Really respects his family. But recently, he's kind of been growing wary of Jobin. So I think a really good moment would be something like he says, Jobin, you know, I'm not having this. You know, they have some kind of feud. And, you know, Jobin could kill Norisuke.
Yeah.
And it would be a really good way to show family in complete, like, disarray. And then they could all unite together to eventually fight Jobin. And I think the death, in particular, could really show a more twisted side to Jobin.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of expecting... He's not evil. He's not evil like Diavolo or Dio. You know, we're not getting that kind of evil.
No, he's not.
There's
like,
something up with him.
He's not like, oh, I want to be like, you know, the ultimate being, unless that's what he randomly decides to say next. He's like, no, I have to be perfect, and you guys can't be perfect. You guys all have to suffer, you know. But even still, I wouldn't think that, because just with this character, like, he's so... The thing with Jobin is, while he's being antagonistic towards our main character, and this is kind of like the funny Valentine effect, I guess, but he's humble towards our main character, right? Well, not really a funny Valentine effect, because Valentine is very adamant about getting the corpse parts, but Jobin is, like, you know, humble to Josuke when he has, like, the interactions with him. He takes him into his room. He shows him all of the beetles. He's like, yeah, these are all these different types of them, and he's, like, explaining all of them. And he's very, like, you know, happy about showing his collection to him. And up to that point, the only person that really had gone into Jobin's room was, like, you know, Joshu, who's his younger brother and stuff, because Jobin was like, oh, I don't like showing people a lot of my stuff, but you're here, so I'll show it to you. And he's being really humble about it. And I kind of just, I don't know, it's like a weird effect on his character where even if he's a main antagonist, and he's definitely doing something because he's very concerned about Josuke, and he doesn't want him to achieve whatever it is that he's trying to do. He doesn't want him to get to the fruit. Maybe that's because that'll affect Jobin, and if he gets the fruit, it's somehow connected to Jobin and it'll affect Jobin's life. Maybe it's because Jobin wants to get the fruit for himself. We don't know, but that's actually a good point that you bring up him towards, Norisuke towards Jobin, because when they first introduced Jobin, and Norisuke sees him at the shop, he's very happy. He's like, oh, I haven't seen you in a long time, my son. You know, I love you. How have you been? They have, like, a catch-up, I guess, for a bit, and then he introduces him to Josuke, and he's like, yeah, this is the new kid. We're taking care of him at the family house. You know, be nice to him, or whatever. And he's very adamant about that, right? Because Norisuke doesn't want anybody treating Josuke terribly. That's why he always gets pissed at Joshu and stuff. But Joshu's been very good about that, I guess, lately, and he's been more open and accepting towards Josuke. But then when the mother shows up and the mother's like, oh, Jobin let me in. Jobin wasn't at the house. Jobin was still out because Jobin was on his way to Dolomite. Because this happens right before this fight. And Norisuke gets like really worried and concerned, so that's a good point. He could have like a big fight. And again, on the cover, they're looking at each other. Like the positioning of them, Josuke and Jobin or Norisuke and Jobin are both kind of like looking at each other. So if they have this fight, that would be kind of cool. Because I guess Norisuke's role has been like a quote-unquote Zeppeli role of support to our main character. So who else could you really call like a Zeppeli of the part so far, you know? Because every part has like some type of Zeppeli character that's there to support the character and move the plot. And what has Norisuke done? He's supported Josuke and he's moved the plot. And now we have Jobin that's over here trying to do things against Norisuke and against Josuke, while Norisuke and Josuke are trying to go and, you know, continue on with whatever they're doing. And Norisuke is being adamant about helping Josuke, while Jobin is being adamant about not helping him. So that's an interesting point.
I think because of how much Norisuke cherishes his family, it would really be impactful if we saw Jobin, you know, act really violently towards him. Perhaps he could do something like prolong his death, do something like, you know, properly painful to him. Because the way I see it, every villain has one moment where they do something, you know, just completely fucking like, just evil, basically. Even Funny Valentine, it's a minor thing, but I remember at one point he just like slams it's just a random guy, passerby, and he like slams a door on him, like to get him in this other dimension or something. And every character's got this one moment where they just do something out of place. Because even for characters that are morally like, you can see where they're coming from, they've got this one thing they do that places like them, so they're just a bit worse, you know, just a bit worse than
like part one Dio. He like turns the lady into a vampire or whatever. He's like, oh, you either become a vampire or, you know, like or you die, but I'm not going to do anything to your son. And because she has a baby, and then what happens? She ends up eating the baby. That was crazy as shit. When I saw that, he was like, and technically Dio didn't do anything, right? He just turned the lady into a vampire, but he drove her to the point where she ate her own son. You know, that's crazy. Yeah,
it's a classic example of like textbook evil from
Dio. That's just like, holy shit, like, he didn't do anything, but Dio's crazy. Because even up till that point, like, he wanted to become powerful and rich because his family sucked, and, you know, his mother died, and his dad was a drunk, and his dad was a piece of shit, right? But then Dio he completely loses it, and he makes somebody eat their kid. And given, it was already crazy because he was DNA splicing freaking people with, like, monkeys and shit, and he was doing all this other crazy stuff, but he got to that point, and that was ridiculous. Kira has the moment where he snaps on Koichi, and he's bashing his fucking face into the floor, and he's, like, bleeding everywhere, and he gets so twisted about it. And again, a good point that you bring this up, because he's crazy, because the dude is like, wait, I can't keep, like, fucking literally killing you because I have to fix your sock because it's, like, inside out. We haven't seen Jobin have this crazy-ass moment. We've seen him shave his eyebrows, and he laughed about it, but we haven't seen him do some psychotic shit where he's all like, die, and he chops your body up and then sends it to your friends like Diavolo did.
He's got potential for pent-up rage, because he's very respectful, like, to, is it Dolomite, or Dolomite? He's like, you know, sorry if I disturbed you. He's a very respectful person. And I can easily see him just completely flip and, you know, turn around, you know, if nothing goes his way, you know, it's some really brutal stuff coming from him. Yeah. And I think it's going to be soon. I really do think we're setting up in the next 2 or 3 arcs, if we assume they're not too long, within the next year. I think by the end of 2017, it's going to be a very clear path to where this story is going.
Yeah, and who the villain is. Yeah, I guess we'll start wrapping things up. We've been talking for like 20 minutes. I will keep talking about this shit like all day. I don't care, but just for video purposes, we've pretty much said all the things we could think of as of now, because we'll probably keep talking about more. But let us know what you guys think down below in the comments. Of course, the link to PsychicExtremist channel will be down below. You guys can go ahead and check him out. But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. You know, if you think Jobin is going to be the main villain and you have some crazy theory behind it, and you guys have like supporting evidence from earlier chapters and maybe things that have been foreshadowed that we might have just not noticed at the time of recording this, go ahead and let us know, because there have definitely been times where I've done a video and somebody's like, you know, they foreshadowed this at this point and I never noticed this. And this happens a lot also in like One Piece, just to kind of throw that out there. Like, that's been a manga that I've been reading, like, you know, my entire life pretty much. Like, I've been following One Piece since I was a little kid. I've been up to date with it. I love it. But this isn't a One Piece video, but they foreshadow a lot of things ahead of time, and JoJo kind of does this also, like with Oingo Boingo's book. I always forget which one of them, so I just say both of them.
Thoth, I think.
With Thoth, yeah. It has the predictions of the Star Crusaders dying and Jotaro getting his face like cut with like the explosion shit. What happens in part 4? He gets the face explosion, but he doesn't die. Part 6, he finally gets the face cut and he dies. There's other bits of foreshadowing in JoJo. Like there was somebody that brought up how RPS Kid and the Kira fight are very similar. How he believes in his all supreme luck and nothing bad can happen to him, and everything just turns on him because he gets outsmarted and outplayed. So JoJo has a lot of foreshadowing. If you guys can think of any of that, go ahead and let us know. Just go down into the comments and tell us whatever you think is going to happen. Theorize on what you think could happen with the stand ability. Because again, a lot of people think, oh, the stand isn't strong enough because it's just heating things up. I think you could take complete advantage of this and do some crazy shit. So let me know what you guys think down below. I definitely think he was holding back on his stand abilities for sure. I don't think this is just going to be something so simple. Because again, even though he was having this fight, they were just, attacking each other with beetles. And it was a really good fight. It's a really cool chapter, and it's really crazy and like absurd, but I don't think he was trying to do anything to Josuke. And I don't even think, he definitely knows Josuke has some type of ability because of the way the situation went with the bubbles and stuff, but Josuke was doing a good job of keeping this out of Jobin's sight. But I think some crazy shit is going to go down probably within the next couple of chapters. Even within the next 2 or 3, I think we're going to get some exposition on things. So any closing statements?
Well, yeah, basically just don't dismiss him or his character. He's basically the main villain now, and I think we're going to get some really amazing stuff from him in the upcoming chapters. So yeah, watch out for him.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. That was really fun. We'll probably do more of these if you guys want, and just on anything. Leave any topics down below, like I always say. I'll see you guys next time.